from a low life, but now people call me the king, tearing it up with every lyric that I bring to the table. Because I'm willing and able, I'm in more homes than Comcast cable. I got the skill that'll rattle your brain. I'm a threat like Saddam Hussein, everybody know my name. Joe Habib's a top soldier, kid, they should have told you, you really need to pack a lunch. My words hit hard just like a Tyson punch, so give me a chance, I bet you I can make it dance. Show me your girl, I bet you I get in her pants. I'm breaking egos and money is what I'm stacking. Joe Habib on the mic, you know I'm down for action. Shout out to Make Beats Sir, and the Beat Smith, and the whole Roper Dope Radio crew. Yeah. All right, what's going on, everybody? You know, it's really sad how people can be so easily manipulated, particularly boxing fans, right? You know, it seems like we have this cult out there, right? We used to have cults, you know, when it came to certain fighters. We'd have one faction of people going for one fighter, another faction of people going for another fighter. But now it seems like we have this cult. It's the drug testing cult, where all everyone wants to talk about now is drug testing. Before, once a fight gets signed, oh, is there drug testing? After the fight gets signed, oh, was there drug testing? Did he take his tests? Like, everyone is so like focused on this issue, and this issue's been put out in the forefront so much, and there's really been no evidence of any tragedies in the ring, you know, coming from as a result of someone being on PEDs. I've never seen a tragedy happen in the ring where someone, you know, God forbid, they lost their life, whatever, or they got seriously injured, and the person that inflicted the damage on the victim or the fighter, however you want to word it, it's never been the result of him being on PEDs or him being on some type of specific drug. So we keep hearing, oh, well, people can die in there, people can die in there, people can die in there, right? But let's really look deep into this, right? Because I'm going to go over a couple of scenarios and situations that have happened, you know, regarding VADA and their testing. And you can come to your own opinion, right? Because to me, if you really cared about people dying in the ring, then you wouldn't sanction some of these mismatches, right? That's one thing. You wouldn't sanction some of these mismatches, right? You would put better regulations in place in terms of weigh-ins, right? You would have better officiating where referees stopped fights when they should be stopped instead of letting guys take beatings in there. To me, these things are more dangerous, and these things, we have evidence to support and show that these things have a history of causing fatalities, right? These are the things that are actually hurting fighters, right? Now, again, I'm not saying we don't test the fighters, right? But we're really starting to go overboard with this VADA bullshit, right? We're really starting to go overboard with this VADA bullshit. And VADA, like I said, they have their own protocol, right? Which is different from the WADA protocol. Every other testing organization uses WADA except for VADA, right? They have a zero tolerance policy. They have, you know, different rules and regulations in terms of, you know, what they believe and what they think is dangerous or what they think is a performance enhancer. They have a different, a different standard than WADA does, right? And we've gone over the whole stimulant thing, right? So here's the thing. We've gone over the whole stimulant thing and how WADA allows for stimulants, right, out of competition, and VADA does not. And again, I've already went over this. If you're taking a stimulant during training, you couldn't sleep one night, or you're lacking energy, you want to get a little bit of a boost, right? Take a stimulant, get you through the workout. If you're not taking that during the day of the fight, it's not going to be in your system. You're not going to get a benefit from it. And if you've built a dependence to that stimulant, just like caffeine, if you drink caffeine every day of your life and all of a sudden you just stop, what happens? You actually crash and you function worse than you did when you were taking the caffeine. So if you take caffeine for a month and then the next day you just stop, you're going to feel like shit. So again, you're not getting the benefit from the stimulant unless you're taking it before the actual competition. So why does VADA have a different stance on that? Because they want to be able to catch more people. They make their system more stringent so they can catch more people, so they can say we're better than everyone else. It's a way of marketing themselves. Well, Beeb, they're nonprofit, so what difference does it make? Okay, that's a pretty convenient word in the business sector, right? Because that doesn't mean you're not generating revenue when people aren't making money. You have employees, right? You're paying employees. You're tax exempt, so that's great, right? You don't have to pay taxes if you're nonprofit. But you can generate revenue through donations and through memberships. And what does VADA have? They have memberships to their program, which is that 365 drug testing, that clean boxing program they call it, right? 365, supposed to be 24/7, whatever. Once you sign up for that, you're signing up for their membership. So VADA is getting revenue. VADA is paying employees. And no disrespect to Dr. Margaret Goodman, but I'm sure she's paying herself as an employee for VADA. So again, it's not like they're not making money, right? It's not like they're not generating revenue. It's not like all of a sudden they're just doing this out of the goodness of their heart. Everybody likes to make money. And classifying something as nonprofit doesn't mean you're not making money, right? Doesn't mean you're not paying employees. It doesn't mean you're not making money. All right? So let's just get that out of the way. And then you got Victor Conti as their spokesman, always asking questions. Oh, is this fight have 365? Does this have VADA testing? Does that have VADA testing? Basically, he's acting as a spokesman for them, as a PR person for them, trying to help them get people signed up, right? That's a conflict of interest to me. You have somebody who's selling supplements, right? Who has sponsored athletes, which are boxers. He has YouTubers and journalists that work with him, right? He has people on YouTube channels. They have the VADA ads and they have the VADA promos before the video starts, right? And it's kind of funny now, like how all these YouTubers now all of a sudden they're like, oh, what about the drug testing? What about the drug testing? They never did that before Victor Conti came on the scene, right? And they were getting and they weren't getting checks from Victor Conti, right? And they weren't getting sponsored from Victor Conti. And now he even has a website where he sells the supplements, but he also has like people writing boxing stories for him, and he's got boxers on there as sponsored athletes, and he sells his services. He's a consultant to boxers, helps them with their nutrition and their supplements, right? So this whole thing about him in VADA, that's something's fishy going on behind the scenes, man. That's like a big clout chase to me, Why is it that no one else will have anything to do with them except for VADA, right? No one else wants anything to do with them. And it's kind of funny how VADA is only in boxing, and it's only through the WBC, right? And you only have one person tooting VADA's horn. And you got one guy tooting VADA's horn, trying to tell everyone, oh, you should do VADA testing. You should do VADA, shaming everyone if they're not doing VADA testing. If there's a big fight and VADA testing is not involved, the first person on Twitter, why? Why is it? Again, you have to ask yourself why, right? This was a guy who, from the Balco scandal, who basically was showing people how to cheat and beat the tests. Now, all of a sudden, he's become virtuous. I asked him one time on Twitter, if you never got caught, would you be this staunch advocate for VADA testing? Right? You know what his answer was? That's like asking me if my aunt had balls, would she still be my aunt? So he pretty much revealed to me what his true motivation was, and that is to make money and sell supplements and sell his services to fighters as a consultant and using VADA, right, as a means to clout chase. And I suspect there's something going on behind the scenes. I would not be surprised. And again, this is just my opinion. He's not getting something under the table. The more fighters you refer to us, right, the more fighters you help us get signed up, maybe something's getting slipped to him. Because why else would he be this hell-bent on trying to get fighters signed up for VADA testing? Right? It's almost like he's a salesman for them, right? He's a marketer for them, right? Something's fishy going on here. And people like to say that they're the gold standard, right? Really? Well, let's go back to 2013 when Brandon Rios was getting ready to fight Manny Pacquiao in Macau. And Brandon Rios signed up for VADA testing. And he had a sample collector come to his room. And he said they didn't even have a testing kit. And he actually had a piss in a jar. And then they finally got around to getting a testing kit about 20 minutes later, and they took the piss from the jar that people have touched, and a couple people touched it, multiple people touched it. They took the piss from the jar and poured it into the sample kit. Now let me ask you this: say you went to your doctor and you were getting like a urine test, maybe you for your kidneys or something. So you had pain in your kidneys, and yeah, we're gonna have you pee. We're gonna give you a urine test. We're gonna send your urine out to see if there's any protein in your blood or something like that. If your doctor asked you to piss in a glass, what would you think? If you weren't given a test kit to piss in, what would you think? I mean, is this really the gold standard? You mean to tell me that? And then you mean to tell me that wasn't contaminated or couldn't be contaminated, right? And ultimately, if it was revealed that sample was contaminated, right? And if that was a USADA test, that wouldn't even have been an issue, right? Because once again, that test was from supposedly from I think it was from a week out or 2 weeks out that they did that test. Right? So it wasn't in competition. So it wouldn't even matter. So why did they create their own protocol? Why do they have their own set of rules that no one else uses? Right? And I'm going to talk about something else that they do that no one else does. Right? So if that was such an advantage for Brandon Rios, then I mean, why was the result so one-sided? So we're supposed to believe the drugs that they're catching people for are a lot of the stuff wouldn't even be reported by anyone else because it's just ridiculous. And I'll explain some other instances, right? Because what they do is that they say, oh, we're just a reporting agency. Whatever we find, we report it. So that's why you hear all these adverse findings, right? Because they know a lot of this is bullshit themselves. They know when they see a metabolite of something in there, or they see a trace amount of something, they know it's not from a result or as a result of someone juicing. A lot of it's tainted supplement. Like a lot of it, like USADA would look at that and say, "Nah, that's not enough to be of concern. That looks like it's tainted supplement." They would do some research on it and they would figure it out. That's why a lot of times VADA will get the test and they just report the result regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the situation. Adverse finding, right? Adverse finding. Why? Because they want to report as many adverse findings as they can so they could say our testing is better than everyone else. Because why? Because we're catching people. But what are you actually catching people for? And what are the circumstances? And are these results really showing that someone has taken performance-enhancing drugs? Or is it tainted? Is there a tainted collection? Or is it a tainted supplement? Again, same thing with Andre Berto. When he tested, there was an adverse finding in one of his tests, right? Let me pull this up real quick. So Berto's positive test results for nandrosterone, right? Nandrosterone, which is a metabolic byproduct of nandrolone, right? Which is like DECA. So he didn't even test positive for the actual substance itself. He tested positive for a metabolic byproduct, which basically is saying, and it was an ultra trace amount, which basically means that it was from something. It was from a tainted supplement, right? For it to be that low, and for that to be a metabolic byproduct, like this wouldn't even have been reported by USADA because it was a ultra trace amount of a metabolic byproduct of the drug. Not even the drug itself. So that screams right there of tainted supplement, right? Which is what the determination ultimately came down to. But what do? They have to release it to the press for adverse finding. And everyone just grabs it and they blow it out of proportion and they run with it, right? They run with it. They're smearing people's names, right? They're smearing people's names just because they want to grab headlines and they want to market their testing, right? And they want to get as many fighters signed up under their program as possible, right? Because they can generate revenue through what? Selling memberships to their 365 clean boxing program. That's revenue that they're able to keep because it's through memberships. And they got this cozy little partnership with Victor Conti. Come on, man. Let's look at the Lamont Peterson situation where he had a doctor-prescribed testosterone pellet, right? So they also have another policy, which is called their carbon isotope test. So everyone else, right, like USADA and everyone else, they look for elevated levels of testosterone. So you have like a ratio. You have a ratio of 3 to 1, which is 3 to 1 testosterone to epitestosterone level, right? That's what everyone does. They look for elevated levels, right? Because if you don't have elevated levels, then you're really not going to get a performance boost, right? But what they do is they look for exogenous forms of testosterone, right? Meaning anything that's synthetic, which a doctor-prescribed pellet like Lamont Peterson took would be, right? So he didn't have elevated levels of testosterone, but because he had a doctor-prescribed pellet, right? A doctor-prescribed pellet to bring him up to normal levels, which it did, because he wasn't above the normal level. He was still at the normal level, but because they have their own protocol, anything that's exogenous, that's why they use that carbon isotope test, right? Automatically, right? Adverse finding. If that was a USADA test or any other test, it wouldn't even have been reported. But see, they get the results and then they say, oh, well, we don't do any, we just report the results. We don't administer any punishment. No, but they want to report the results so people can say, see, they're the only ones catching people. But what are they actually catching? And what are the circumstances around what they're catching and what's going on here? Right? And you saw Lamont Peterson in that fight with Victor Ortiz. I thought he lost, right? Oh, but you can kill somebody in there. Really? By taking a testosterone pellet that brings you up to normal levels that's prescribed by a doctor because you were medically prescribed for that because you have lower levels than you're supposed to have, right? So just trying to put this man in a situation where he can live a healthy life and have a healthy testosterone level so he's not going through life with low testosterone, because then you can suffer from low libido, depression, right? These are all things that can cause other issues with your health. So a doctor addressed that for him, but no, that's an adverse finding. Come on, man. He took a testosterone pill prescribed by a doctor, which would have been a therapeutic use exemption under USADA or anyone else. And it never would have been reported, and his name would not have been dragged through the mud. But no. Oh, well, we just report the results. We don't administer any punishment. Yeah, but you're smearing people's names, right? And then Oscar Valdez, phentermine, right? Oscar Valdez, phentermine, right? You got Victor Conte out there trying to tell people that that's some super drug that's going to turn you into Superman. Oh, you take phentermine, you can go out there and run seven marathons. Come on, bro. It's a fucking appetite suppressant with a very mild stimulatory effect. And I've had doctors tell me that you can get more of a boost out of 2 cups of coffee than that. So stop it, Victor Conte. Stop it. Stop it with the over exaggeration of what these drugs actually do and the severity of the situation in some of these cases. Cut it out. Right? Same thing with Luis Ortiz, blood pressure medication that was prescribed by a doctor. USADA would have just looked at that and said, okay, prescribed by a doctor. Because the difference between USADA and VADA is too, they have an input in how the results are reported. So they can make a determination on how the results are reported. Well, VADA says, oh no, we just report the results regardless. Like, so USADA could look at a situation and say, well, that was prescribed by a doctor. Okay, we already addressed that. You know what I'm saying? They have an input in how the results are reported. So they have a say in how in the reporting, where VADA does not. VADA says, oh, we have no input on how on the determination of the test, or how we just say that there's an adverse finding and that's it. Where USADA, right? They have a say in the actual reporting, right? They have a say in that, right? They have an input in how the results are reported, where VADA doesn't. VADA's pass or fail, right? VADA's pass or fail. Oh, well, Valdez was juicing. No, he wasn't juicing, right? And the amount of that drug that was in his system, once again, basically showed that it was more than likely from a tainted supplement again. So once USADA looks at the situation, they do their own investigation, right? They can make a determination on how they want to report the results. So a lot of these results normally wouldn't even get reported because they're of no consequence, right? That's number one. And number two, right? if it's a ultra trace amount, right? If it's an ultra trace amount of a metabolite or of a byproduct of something, it's pretty clear, right, that the evidence shows that it's from a tainted supplement or a contaminated sample, right? And when the investigations are done in a lot of these cases, right, the fighter ultimately ends up being cleared because the commission makes the final say. They make the final determination. Just like in the Canelo situation, everyone was fucking running his name through the mud, but it was quite publicly known that many athletes, the soccer team, had the same issue with the clenbuterol because it was in the meat, and he had an ultra trace amount in his system. USADA could have looked at that and said, "Yeah, well, based on that, they would have done an investigation and they would have made a determination whether or not that was from contaminated meat or not." But VADA just reports the result regardless. It's not their job to do any like USADA investigates. They take a look at the circumstance, right, before they report it. Oh, well, VADA catches everyone. Catches everyone for what? For what? Nasal sprays? Fertility drugs? Blood pressure medication? Heart medication? At least USADA over in the USC, when guys pop positive in USADA, they're popping for EPO. They're popping for actual anabolics. VADA, they just want to fucking just collect up. They want to put up the most adverse findings they can so they could say, look how many more people we're catching than everyone else. That's what it is. And Victor Conti's just trying to go out there and he's trying to be the spokesman for them, right? That's shady, guys. You got one guy scouring the internet on Twitter every time a fight's announced. If there's not VADA testing, he shames the promoter, shames the fighters. Why? Why? Who's VADA? They're a private company with their own set of rules that no one else follows. And they created their own set of rules just so they can catch more people, right? And they have their own determination on specific drugs. They have this zero tolerance policy on drugs, but they have no scientific data to back up their claims. You have no scientific data to say that stimulants perform out of competition a performance enhancement result as opposed to in competition. We know how long stimulants last in the system, right? They're usually out of the system in 12 hours, right? So if a stimulant is in and out of the system in 12 hours and you have to take it every day, you can't take caffeine and get that stimulatory effect for a week or for a month. You have to take it every day, right? Why? Because it's in and out of your system. And when you don't take it, what happens? You get a negative result. But VADA, stimulants are banned, regardless of the time you take them. Come on, man. There's a reason why they created their own set of policies, rules, and protocol. And then they're sending test inspectors with no fucking test kits and having fucking fighters piss in cups, glasses. Come on, man. All you guys have been duped. And a lot of these YouTubers, a lot of these journalists, right? Because they're being sponsored by Snack, who's affiliated with VADA, right? And because Victor Conti's on the internet shaming everyone, oh, you're going to take VADA testing. You're going to take VADA. Why? Oh, we're the gold standard because we're catching everyone. Yeah, there's a reason why you're catching everyone. I've already went over that. Because you created a specific set of rules that made it easier for you to catch people for really things that should be non-issues, right? I don't give a fuck if Lamont Peterson is taking a doctor-prescribed testosterone pellet, having it injected in his leg, and it's only bringing his testosterone up to normal. How the fuck is that giving him a performance boost, a performance enhancer? And Victor Conti's trying to tell everyone that phentermine was a super drug. Oh, really? What did I tell you all? I told you it was a very mild stimulant. It's an appetite suppressant. And don't be surprised if it actually makes Oscar Valdez perform worse in the fight. And what happened? He had one of the worst performances of his career against Conceição. Why? Because he was already depleted by trying to cut calories and make weight. And then he's taking an appetite suppressant that's going to make him, and I don't even know if he took it knowingly. It's very possible because of the small amount in his body, but I'm just speaking hypotheticals here. If he were to take it knowingly, he wouldn't get any benefit from it. None. If he wasn't taking it, even if he was taking it 24 hours before the fight, the stimulatory effect of that drug is so minimal. But again, if he took it a week before, 2 weeks before, like the test suggested, and there was a micro amount in his system 2 weeks before the fight, I'm supposed to be worried about that? Come on, man. Again, we just report the results, and they have zero tolerance, right? And they don't look at the circumstances and the situation at all of the test, unlike what USADA does. USADA will look at the result, right? And they can make a determination. And if you have a stimulant in your system from a USADA test and it's not 24 hours before the fight, then guess what? You pass. And I've already explained why it's not a big deal. Use common sense. Do you drink a cup of coffee once a month? Do you drink a cup of coffee once a week? No. You drink it every day. Why? Because you need that boost every day. The one day you don't drink that cup of coffee, guess what happens? You don't get the boost and you crash. So VADA has no scientific data or evidence to say that there's a reason why you can't take a stimulant out of competition. None. They also have no scientific evidence to say that just because you're taking a testosterone pellet that's bringing you up to normal levels, right? Normal levels, not above levels, right? Everyone's looking for above the normal level, every other agency. But why are they looking for exogenous testosterone through the carbon isotope test? Why? They're trying to catch people on technicalities. All this other shit would be technicalities from USADA or anyone else. It's that simple. It's that simple. Right? So Victor Conti didn't wake up one day and all of a sudden have this epiphany that he cares about the safety and well-being of the fighters. No. What he wants to do is get his name out there, clout chase, try to get people signed up for VADA, right? Trying to get as many of these athletes sponsored that he can. So they'll buy his supplements, they'll pay his consultation fees. Then he's got his website and he's hiring journalists. And then these journalists, what do? When they do their videos, they do their write their articles, right? And they post their content on social media. Guess what they're doing? We're advertising snack. Just like the fighters are wearing the snack hats. The snack have snack logos on their jackets and their trunks. Guys, if you can't see what's going on here, honestly, I don't know what to tell you, man. And I'm taking a very unpopular opinion here, but you know why I'm taking this opinion? And I'll explain to you why. Because unlike Victor Conti and unlike a lot of other people, I generally do care about the fighters because I respect what they do, right? And I don't want to see someone get their their name ran through the mud and smeared through the mud and be labeled, right, for the rest of their career as a cheater when they're getting busted on technicalities, bro. From an agency that created their own set of rules, right, for the sole purpose and reason so they can catch more people in insignificant situations and scenarios just so they can say we're better than everyone else. Look how many more people we're catching. They created their own protocol just so they could do that. They're not used in the Olympics. They're not used in the Pan American Games. When the NFL was doing their testing, what did they use? They used USADA. The UFC uses USADA. And when people pop positive in the UFC, they're not popping positive for nasal sprays, fertility drugs, and they're not popping positive for heart medication and blood pressure medication. You know why? Because USADA would look at that stuff and say, hey, not a big deal here. Nothing to see here. But because you got VADA, oh, we just report everything. We have zero tolerance policy. We don't determine the punishment. That's up to the commission or the sanctioning body, right? We have no input in how this test is interpreted. Everything is pass fail, right? It's a pass fail test with VADA. There's no gray area. And there's specific rules designed, put in place just so they can catch more people. And every year, when you look on that list, more and more and more substances get added on that list. Right? More and more. Jeff Nowinski, the guy who works with USADA, even he's come out and said, the only problem I have now with a lot of these testing protocols now is there's too many substances on these lists, and there's not even any like that meldonium, right? That meldonium that Alexander Povetkin tested positive for. They actually changed the policy on that and said that you're allowed to have a specific amount of that in your system, right? But they admitted, WADA even admitted, that we haven't really done extensive research on this. So a lot of times drugs are getting put on this list without even having any extensive true research being done on them. So Jeff Nowinski, the guy who works with USADA and works with the UFC, he's even made statements and complained that they're putting too many things on this list without doing the proper research, right? Proper research. Okay? So you have to ask yourself why. And I pretty much laid it all out. Oh, VADA, you have a fighter pass every single test except the VADA test. Why? Because it's pass or fail. Whether they believe it's from a tainted supplement, right? Whether they believe it's from contamination, right? Whether they believe it's from a metabolite, right? Or a similar substance that triggered the positive test. Whether they believe any of that, because it's pass or fail, it gets reported as what? Adverse finding. And as soon as that gets put out to the press, everyone jumps all over it. And because a lot of these people now have this relationship with Victor Conte, right? Because they're being sponsored by Victor Conte. He's cutting checks to people now. It's kind of funny now how everyone all of a sudden cares about PEDs, right? Victor Conte's turned a lot of people into VADA PR people, right? How come USADA, UCAD, or any other of these agencies? How come no one in sports is advertising for those agencies? How come no one's doing that? Like you can't see what's going on here. You guys really can't see. Like these are actual true organizations, right? And then you have VADA, who's a private company, who conveniently says they're nonprofit, so they can be tax exempt. And we already explained how tax exempt companies can still generate revenue and pay employees and still make money. We already explained that, right? So once again, I'm encouraging people not to just hear these adverse findings. Like, do some research, really look into it, right? Show me the bodies of fighters taking phentermine and killing other fighters, or seriously injuring other fighters with trace amounts. Show me. Show me someone taking a testosterone pill, bringing their normal testosterone, their testosterone up to normal levels, and it's prescribed by a doctor. Victor Ortiz, blood pressure medication was prescribed by a doctor. If that was a USADA test, they wouldn't even have reported that as an adverse finding. That would have been a therapeutic use exemption. And it wouldn't have mattered anyways because it was out of competition. So once again, right? Once again, if you change the speed limit to 50 instead of 55, guess what's going to happen? You're gonna catch more people for speeding. Does that actually mean the law is better? That it was a good move to lower the speed limit? Or does it mean you just wanted to catch more people and write more tickets? And now Conor Benn's been cleared, right? Because the amount that was in his system, right? The amount that was in his system was so low that they've determined that was from possible contamination after doing the research. But VADA's not going to tell you those things because guess what? Well, it's not our job to do research. It's not our job to investigate. It's not our job to we just pass or fail. Pass or fail. There's a black and white, no gray area. So that's it, guys. You don't have to listen to me. But give what I'm saying a thought, right? Be an independent thinker. Don't be manipulated by Victor Conti and a lot of these people who are affiliated with Snack, who are sponsored by Snack, right? Who are making money off of Snack. Victor Conti is selling his services to fighters, and he's selling his supplements to fighters, and he's selling his supplements to the world. And the supplement industry, right? Hate to say it, I take supplements, but a lot of these companies are full of shit because everyone's using basically the same formula or similar formulas, right? Oh, Beeb, why can't they just patent their formulas and no one can use? No, all you got to do is change the amount of a specific ingredient a little bit, right? And you can get away with it. Yeah, Vivo. That was hilarious. That was hilarious. That was cool, man. Thank you, man. So yeah, that's all I got, man. Just kind of look behind the numbers here, man, and ask yourself: is a company who sends a sample collector to a fighter's hotel room, and they don't even have a test collection kit, and they ask the guy to piss in a glass, and then they take that glass that several people have touched, and then they pour that glass into the testing kit. Ask yourself how reputable they are, and would you want to use them? Oh, and here's another thing. When Shane Carwin was in the UFC, right? And there was a discussion on, for his fight, them using VADA. VADA's going out there on their website, right? They're smearing this guy's name, saying that this guy was a PD user and he was a drug cheat and all this and that, and he's never failed a drug test. But they're out there smearing his name, right? So then he's like, why am I going to allow these guys to do the testing for me if they're already making false claims on me and saying that I've failed these tests that I never even failed. So they're out there smearing people's names. So these guys are out there really ruining people's lives over really minuscule, nothing issues, right? So all you, I think there's a few bodybuilders too. There's a few bodybuilders too. But other than that, no. None of the other major sports use snack. You don't see any UFC athletes. You don't see anyone in the NBA, anyone in baseball, anyone in soccer. I don't see anyone else using snack, to be honest with you. No one wants anything to do with Victor Conte, man. All of a sudden, people think he's this virtuous guy. Come on, man. They don't. Yeah, and that's what they do. They smear. If you don't want to use VADA, they smear your name and they imply that you're a drug cheat when they have no evidence of it. And that's why people don't trust them. That's why people don't trust them. Well, if you're a fighter, you're still going to get tested by the commission. So yeah, but outside of like VADA, meaning like USADA, I don't know any right now. I don't know anyone in boxing who uses USADA. They all, so if that's what you mean, like a third party testing, no, they don't use VADA. They don't use USADA. They all use VADA. As far as third party, as far as I know. Nope. So yeah, guys. I mean, that's about it. That's all I got. Till next time, Beeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. Have a good one.